Fourth and final reading, page 222, first paragraph. In their diaries, twin sisters Harriet and Henrietta MacArthur tell of an experience beyond no other with something from another world. And is what I will read now. Then on a glorious late summer Sunday, February 15, 1942, following a picnic lunch under the shade of a towering eucalypt close to the base of Tor Hill, we experienced something so strange and beyond the incredible that we thought we must have been daydreaming. Welcome Reserve, since 1960 Welcome State Forest, had become a favourite place for our two-wheel adventures, ever since we began to venture farther on our bicycles toward the end of 1941. The ride to and from was a strenuous one, but one that was always worth the expending of what, at the time, seemed the bountiful energy we possessed. The labyrinth of dirt roads that meandered through the 1 square mile area of native bushland beckoned us to cycle them time and time again, so often that we became intimate with their goings and coming, with the lay of the land and its features, and the animals that abounded in it as well. Henrietta and I delight in the observation of kangaroo, emu, wombat, rabbit, hare, fox, and the proliferation of bird life that called the area home or availed themselves of the native grasses, seeds, nectar, and the abundance of water from the 3 earth dams and the spring-fed creek. At one particular spot there was a rock pool clear of running water that was fed by the aptly named Spring Creek, surrounded by an oasis of verdant trees, shrubs, and lush ground cover, and a place we spread our blanket to relax and partake of a picnic lunch. Because of the abundance of food and water, it was frequently visited by many of the already mentioned animals, one of which on 2 occasions was a kangaroo of such immense proportions that it defied our imagination, filling us with awe, and yes, a little fear as well. The fear we experienced was only natural and to be expected at the sight of such an imposing animal. The thought of what it could be capable of making us feel fragile and insignificant by comparison, like it is when you are out in the open under a dark, ominous sky. It was an animal that demanded respect and to be distant from, both of which we did, not daring to move, not wanting or needing to move, but just to sit back and look, to admire and appreciate this marvel of the animal kingdom, until he had his fill and moved on. Tor Hill at the time, however, was nothing more or less than a notable landmark to us, as it was to everyone who lived in the Shire and just beyond. And like it is with any landmark, you notice it and then move on, as we usually did, to our other place that was far removed from the rugged terrain that the hill and its immediate surroundings were. But on this day we had stopped because of a flat rear tyre on Harriet's bicycle, an inconvenience and one we were more than capable of remedying. 10 yards off to our right was an area of flat ground, well shaded and inviting, and one we took advantage of, and from one where we mended the puncture, deciding then to remain and have lunch. Following our meal we lay down and stretched out using our cardigans we always carried for makeshift pillows, and in no time at all we began to doze. There was just a hint of a breeze rustling the leaves of our towering host, a pleasant soothing sound that, combined with the contentment a meal always provides, made for ideal conditions for one to lose themselves within themselves. So when I, Henrietta, heard a soft sighing, I thought it was coming from my sister, so I smiled and dismissed it. And it was then that I thought I was daydreaming. Must be daydreaming, for what other explanation could there be for the sight I witnessed? That Harriet witnessed too. Well, I didn't know that at the time. Just above the granite boulders atop Tor Hill, stationary in mid-air was, and this is the only way to describe it, a bowler hat with a flat brim. A very large bowler hat, but a bowler hat nonetheless. It was impossible to tell of its makeup because even with the sky clear and the sun radiant, there was nothing to give it away. No reflection from the black brace surface to indicate metal or glass or some such composite. Nothing. For all intents and purposes it was as it appeared, a bowler hat defying gravity. I don't know how long it remained so, a minute, 5, 10, for time seemed to stand still, until a white light so brilliant that it hurt my eyes escaped from underneath it, bathing the top of the hill with its intense luminosity, and amid that light I saw a pyramid that began to slowly rotate, displaying its four sides of different colours, from red to yellow to blue to green, changing sequence with every complete rotation, as if the colour and their order were a signal to an unknown observer that only it could understand. Alright. Then as quick as a prejudicatator or a magician plugs a card out of thin air, the pyramid disappeared and the white light extinguished, and from the slopes of Tor Hill, like spokes of many wheels, shot countless dazzling lights or colours of the rainbow, seemingly to throb, to pulsate if they were living, breathing things, inhaling and exhaling, and dancing about with carefree abandon. It was such a magical, mystical display that I didn't want it to end, wishing like a child on seeing a falling star for it not to end, for it to go on forever and a day. But it did end, and when it did, the object, the bowler hat, disappeared as well, leaving in its wake a lingering sigh like that of a child observing an illusion that defies as much as it had enthralled. When I finally looked at my sister through rapidly blinking eyes, alert from what I thought was a daydream like no other, she returned my look and asked me if I saw what she had seen, only to realise then that it must have been real, unless we both had the exact same daydream. It was an event that we would talk about often, and every time we did we tried to capture the slightest nuance of difference between what we had seen, but there never was any. The following Saturday we returned to the hill, our objective to climb the hill just to satisfy our profound curiosity as to what might be up there, and also to check the slope for any holes or fissures to whence the colourful lights had escaped. Now, this was supposed to be the final reading, but I've decided to just give you a little insight, a little bit of a teaser as to when Sandy and Clyde had their close encounter of the third kind. Now, Clyde is so obsessed with the pyramid buried inside Tor Hill that he has bought a ground-penetrating radar unit, spared no expense, and he and Sandy have gone to Welcome State Forest camping with the luxury of Sandy's caravan. They work for 3 days straight, and after those laborious labours they decide to hell with it, Thursday's going to be a complete day of rest. Anyhow, on that night, this is how the close encounter begins, and it is Sandy who encounters it first. Sleep claimed Clyde in no time at all that night. Sandy, however, was just on the verge of sleep when he was prompted to open his eyes by what he thought were car headlights streaming in through the west-facing windows. He had every reason to believe there was a couple of locals out spotlighting for rabbits, and was no cause for concern unless they were trigger-happy yahoos shooting at anything that moved. But as he continued to watch the lights, a minute, 2, 3, he began to wonder why they weren't moving, of which only 2 reasons instantly came to mind. They had spotted a rabbit in the light and were following it to enable a clear shot and clean kill, or a rabbit had already been taken and one of them was retrieving the carcass. The problem with the latter is that he hadn't heard a shot from a rifle or shotgun, either of which would have carried some considerable distance in the clean, crisp night air. With the caravan awash with light, it was easy for Sam to notice the time, 11:10, and being wide awake he had no other option but to lie on his back staring at the ceiling and wait until the lights went out and the vehicle moved on. Thoughtless mongrels, he silently cussed. Surely they must be aware of the van. So you reckon they'd kill some of the lights, God damn it. He considered rolling a smoke and reached out for the tobacco pouch resting atop the bedside cabinet. But he was so aggravated that there was every chance he'd roll it too tight and wouldn't be able to drag on it. So he drew his arm back. Bastards! Bastards! What the hell has taken them so long? A quick glance at his watch showed 3 minutes had elapsed. Jesus! 2 more minutes, he whispered. And if those frigging lights still persist, I'm getting up to see what's going on out there. He didn't particularly want to vacate the comforting warmth of the bed, But there was no way he'd be able to contemplate sleep with those bloody lights lighting up the van like a Christmas tree. Although what he'd be able to do about it he didn't know at that particular time. With any luck though, the lights would be gone and he wouldn't have to be bothered doing anything at all. 2 minutes later and still the lights persisted, and being a man of his word, Sandy got up. He had hoped Clyde would be roused from sleep by the movement of the van as he dressed, but he hadn't so much as stirred. He would have to go it alone. Once outside he realised he didn't need the torch he was carrying, at least not for the time being anyway. Half the campsite, the road 100 metres to the east and twice that to the west from where the lights came, and a portion of Tall Hill were brightly lit like ANZ Stadium on Friday night football. The night sky had clouded over, but Sandy didn't know that. Didn't have the slightest inclination to look to the heavens, caught up as he was trying to come to terms with what was going on. And with the light so bright it was impossible for Sandy to tell what sort of vehicle it was. But I guess he reckoned it must be a truck of some kind because of the bank of lights up high and another bank low to the ground as if mounted on a bull bar. Shielding his eyes with his hand holding the torch, Sandy slowly made his way to the road where, upon reaching the middle, he stopped and stood his ground, then waved his free arm up and down as an indication to kill the lights. But to no avail. Bastards! He commenced walking then towards the lights, nice and easy, waving his hand as he did so. Yet still he failed to get the message across. 50 metres, 100 metres for all Sandy knew, and getting close with every step. Finally Sandy had had enough. "Hey!" he shouted. "How about a little consideration and dim the lights?" But instead of the lights dimming, or better still going out, the top bank of lights began to pulsate. And with that Sandy began to feel very uneasy. Alma would have said he was daft even to be thinking of leaving the caravan, let alone step outside and confront whoever it was. Now he realised that it was a daft thing to do, and maybe it might have been a good idea to turn tail and head back to the safety of the caravan and wake Clyde, something he should have done to begin with. But after he turned to do exactly that, he noticed that his shadow was moving, which is what he would have expected if he was moving, but he wasn't. And it wasn't elongated either, but getting shorter, as if the lights were. At that very moment 2 words instantly sprang to mind, befitting the way Sandy felt and the situation he was facing. Oh fuck. He didn't want to look back, because if he did he would see what he was convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt didn't exist, couldn't possibly exist, but were there as surely as the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. So he didn't look back. Instead he began to walk in the direction of the campsite 50 metres, 100 metres ahead, whatever. The hairs on the back of his neck bristling, his arms covered in goosebumps, an icy shiver running up and down the length of his spine, deathly afraid of what didn't exist but was following close behind and above him. He, Sandy Harold Merriweather, the skeptic, who had seen lights in the night sky countless times during his lifetime, but denied they were anything but planes and satellites, was having a close encounter, while a man who was convinced there was a pyramid buried inside Tall Hill, was adamant that UFOs existed, who had given an arm or a leg or both to experience this once-in-a-lifetime event, was dead to the world and totally oblivious to what was happening a hefty stone's throw away and getting closer with every passing second.